Welcome back. We're returning this time to spend a second lesson focusing on the construct form, that very unusual form in Hebrew that takes any noun in its regular, just sitting there on the page, absolute form, and turns it into a noun with a trailer hitch at the end, a Lego kind of noun that you can use to construct a longer word or phrase. Quick review. Malka, a queen. Malkat Shiva, the queen of Sheba. Elohim, God. Elohei Yisrael, the God of Israel. And these two forms, at and a, are the two distinct construct endings. Using our friendly adjective, which always marks number and gender the way you expect, the absolute forms are tov, tova, tovim, tovot, and the construct forms are tov, tovat, tovei, tovot. The masculine singular and feminine plural have no special ending. Feminine singular and masculine plural do have special endings. When you see those special endings, patach taf for nouns and adjectives that end in a, tsere yud for nouns and adjectives that end in im, you know with complete certainty that you're looking at a construct form, no excuses. But with the other two forms, the unmarked nouns and adjectives and the nouns and adjectives that end in ot, you have to look for vowel contraction, or else you have to notice that the two words are right next to each other and they don't make any sense unless they're constructed into a phrase. Some examples. Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. Melech Mitzrayim, the king of Egypt. Often, but not always, the punctuation marks will help you. We're going to take a comprehensive look at them toward the end of the course, but for now, just take a look at the little right-angled mark under the aleph of Eretz and under the mem of Melech. It's called a munach, and as you can see, the shape of it tells you, keep going, connect me with the next word. The connection is not always a construct relationship, but sometimes it is. One last reminder, a construct phrase is either definite or indefinite, the whole phrase, yes or no. Only the one noun that's in the absolute form, the noun at the end of the phrase, can be definite, either because it's a proper noun like Israel or Egypt, because it's got the definite article like Moses, the man of God, Ish ha-Elohim of Deuteronomy 33:1, or because it has a possessive suffix like Shem Beno, the name of his son in Genesis 4:17, when Cain names a city after his son. Now we're going to push our study of construct forms ahead a little further, and I want to point out something that we saw last time that I didn't focus our attention on. We were looking at the construct plural form of yom. You remember that yom has an irregular plural, yamim, but once you know that, you can easily recognize its construct plural, yemei. And we saw it in a phrase from Genesis 5:5, all the days of Adam, kol yemei Adam. Well, I said all the days, but I might also have said all of the days, because kol is in construct with yemei, which is in construct with Adam. Yes, you can have more than one construct noun in a construct chain, and kol, all of, is a very common beginning to such a chain. I want to look together with you at a verse that has a long construct chain in it. This verse has some vocabulary we haven't seen, but other than that, we should be able to figure it out together. And that's also a good exercise because, of course, that's what you'll be doing when you set out to use your Hebrew skills on your own. Here's the verse, Genesis 6:5. Vayar Adonai ki rabba ra'at ha'adam ba'aretz, v'chol yetzer machshevot libo, rak ra kol hayom. Right, Vayar Adonai ki rabba should remind you of Vayar Elohim ki tov, and God saw that it was good. In our verse, Vayar Adonai, and the Lord saw, ki Rabbah. Do you remember Rav, Rabbah, Rabim, Rabot? Many or much. So the Lord saw that something was much. What was it there was so much of? Ra'at ha'adam ba'aretz. Ra'at ends with a patach taf, and therefore it must be what? The construct form of ra'ah. And ra, which we'll see at the end of the verse, is the opposite of tov, not good but evil. Ra'ah is evil, the noun. Ra'at ha'adam, the evil of the human being. In Genesis 2, Ha'adam was the one human who had been created in the garden. There's lots of human beings on earth by Genesis 6. Here it's being used in a general way, the evil of humanity. The Lord saw that it was great, ba'aretz. If there's a famine, ra'av ba'aretz, like in Genesis 12 or Ruth 1, then ba'aretz could mean in the land, like the land of Canaan or wherever. But if you're talking about humanity as a whole, it has to mean in the earth, or on the earth, we would say in English. So, Vayar Adonai ki rabbah ra'at ha'adam ba'aretz, the Lord saw that the evil of humanity was great on the earth. And now the text elaborates with a construct chain that's 4 nouns long. V'chol yetzer machshavot libo. You recognize v'chol and all of. Let's see what we can figure out about the next 3 words. Yetzer, segelet noun, with a tsere vowel, by the way, so we know that his yetzer will be yitzro, not yatzro. See Deuteronomy 31:21 if you don't believe me. Machshevot, an ot plural. Libo, his something. And since once we take off the suffix o, this word ends with a bet with a dagesh, I expect that dagesh to drop off, since a double consonant cannot be the last thing in a Hebrew word. So I won't be surprised when the dictionary tells me this word ends in a V sound, not a B sound. And indeed it does. Lev, heart. Libo, his heart. Machshava, thought or scheme or plan. Machshevot libo, the thoughts of his heart. Yetzer, inclination or impulse. V'chol yetzer machshevot libo, all of the inclination of the thoughts of his heart was rak ra kol hayom. Rak, the adverb only. Rak ra kol hayom, only evil, all of the day. Again from the top. Vayar Adonai ki rabbah ra'at ha'adam ba'aretz, v'chol yetzer machshevot libo rak ra kol hayom. And the Lord saw that the evil of humanity on the earth was great, and all the inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil all day long. And after the flood, the Lord says it again. Ki yetzer lev ha'adam ra mi ne'urav. For the inclination of lev ha'adam, the heart of humanity, is ra mi ne'urav, evil from his. See that av ending? What's this word going to look like when you look it up in the dictionary? Ne'urim. His days of being a na'ar, a boy, his youth. Ne'urim occurs only twice in the Bible in the absolute form, but 44 times with a suffix. The inclination of the heart of humanity is evil from his youth. Notice, by the way, that this is a nominal sentence. There's no verb here. We put in is to make the English work properly, but Hebrew doesn't have that verb and doesn't need it. And one more thing that's worth noticing, a helpful reminder for when your friends ask you why you're learning Biblical Hebrew when the Bible's already been translated into English. Do you remember when we looked at how the letter Nun behaves, we saw the phrase, Vayita Adonai Elohim Gan Be'eden? The Lord God planted a garden in Eden, Vayita, with the dagesh in the tet, from the verb nata. That verse continues this way. Here's the King James translation. And there he put the man whom he had formed. Vayasem sham et ha'adam asher yatsar. Yud tzadi resh is the root that means to form or to fashion. A yotzer is a potter who makes things out of clay. And somehow ha'adam, whom the Lord God fashioned out of clay, yatsar, has his own yetzer, his own creative impulse, which is ra. Not tov, but ra. You have to read the Bible in Hebrew to be able to see that. Now let's get back to some more technical things. Another thing we saw when we were looking at how letters behave was two shapes with vav and yud in them that collapse into vowels under certain circumstances. Ayi to A and ave to O. One of the most common circumstances when that happens, and these are the examples I showed you back then, is when a noun with one of those shapes is put in construct form. Ha-bayit, the house, beit ha-melech, the house of the king. Ha-tavech, in the middle, betoch hagan, in the middle of the garden. And now you understand why I can say the house and the middle, even though there's no ha on those words in the Hebrew construct phrases. They're in construct, and the whole phrase is definite because of ha on the noun at the end of the construct chain, the noun in the absolute, ha-melech and hagan. But here's some interesting new information. That word tavech, the middle, only occurs 7 times in the Bible in the absolute form, but betoch, in the middle of something, the preposition bet plus tavech in the construct form occurs almost 300 times, and el toch or min toch occur another 90 or so times. What that means is that many prepositions in Biblical Hebrew are really combinations of the simple prepositions we've already learned, especially be, le, and min, with nouns in construct. Tavech is a noun, but overwhelmingly its real usage in the Bible is as part of a prepositional phrase, inside something, or to or from the inside of something. Quick peek at day 2 of creation, when the whole world was nothing but water, Genesis 1:6. Vayomer Elohim, God said, Yehi, let there be, Rakia, a firmament, a solid shell, bitoch hamayim, in the middle of the water, to separate it into water above and water below. And here's another incredibly common preposition you learned a long time ago that's really le plus a construct noun, lifnei, before. I told you that whenever you saw the ending tsere yud on a word, that it was the construct form of a noun that ends in im, and I wasn't lying to you. Lifnei literally comes from le, to, the face of, penei. Remember al pnei hamayim, over the face of the water? And panim el panim means face to face. But to the face of, lifnei, is idiomatic for before. Where do the 2 ladies with 1 baby come to present their case in 1 Kings 3? Lifnei hamelech, before the king. Where does the altar stand? Lifnei habayit, in front of the house. House with a capital H, that's the temple. When does Isaac tell Esau he wants to bless him? Lifnei moti, before my death. Mavet, death, by the way. Mot, the construct form of mavet, just like toch and tavech. Don't forget, you need a trailer hitch no matter what you're trying to attach to a noun, whether it's another noun or a possessive suffix. Same with bayit and beit. Habayit, the house. But when Mrs. Potiphar wanted to frame Joseph, what did she do? She called to the men of her house and said to them, Vatikra le'anshe veita vatomer lahem. Arrest that man. Vayikra, and he called. Vatikra, and she called. Anshe, construct of anashim, the plural of ish, to the men of veita, her bayit. A, hey with a mapik, third feminine singular suffix. Beit, the construct of bayit, so we can attach that suffix to it. Veita, because bet is a beged kefet letter, and there's a vowel immediately before it. Anshe veita. Vatomer, and she said, lahem, to them, third masculine plural. Now I'm just going to say it and see whether you can look at it and listen to it and just understand it. Vatikra la'anshe veita, vatomer lahem. Now back to lifnei, before. What happens when you want to say before a pronoun? Lifnei me, lifnei you, lifnei him or her. Not that you have to do this yourself, but as always, I want you to be able to recognize the forms that you yourself might not be able to come up with and understand that the Hebrew forms make sense, so you'll be comfortable reading and understanding them. Every time lifnei appears with a suffix more than 400 times in the Bible, it's not lifni, lifnech, lifno, but panim, with one of the suffixes we learned that are attached to plural nouns, and then le in front of it, which eliminates the dagesh in the pei. Why? Pei is a beged kefet letter, and now there's a vocal shva before it, a tiny vowel, but still it is a vowel sound. So, panim, face, pinei, face of, like al panei hamayim, panai, my face, lefanai, before me. Panecha, your face, masculine singular, lefanecha, before you. Panav, his face, lefanav, before him or before it, and so forth. You're not adding endings to a word lifnei, you're adding endings to panim and putting a le in front of it. The opposite of lifnei, before, is acharei. Sometimes with the singular form achar, but usually it's the plural acharei, and it works just like lifnei. Acharai, after me, acharecha and acharaich, after you, acharav, after him, and so on. And finally, we need to look at a couple of irregular nouns with unpredictable or unusual construct forms that are so common, you've got to know them. First, av and ach. Do you remember them? Av, father, and ach, brother. My father and my brother, no problem. Avi and achi. When Cain asks, am I my brother's keeper? My brother is achi. And when Abraham gets caught having told Abimelech that Sarah was his sister, he insists, achoti bat avihi. She is my sister, the daughter of my father. Ach lo vat imi, but not the daughter of my mother. But avi and achi, spelled differently, are also the construct forms of those words. in Genesis 29:10, Ra'a Yaakov et Rachel, bat Lavan achi imo, the daughter of Laban, the brother of his mother. Achi with a kamatz, my brother. Achi with a patach shva, the brother of. Same thing with Av. Avi with a kamatz, my father. Avi hana'ara with a patach shva under the aleph, the father of the girl. And one tricky one that you'll have to rely on context to make clear, peh, mouth, and pi, spelled exactly the same way, can mean either my mouth or the mouth of. Pi habe'er, the mouth of the well, but bifi, in my mouth. Find it in Numbers 22. An easy challenge this time, because I'm going to leave you with another challenge from elsewhere in Numbers later in this lesson. Meanwhile, we need to look at a few more forms with Av and Ach that are irregular and not necessarily obvious. His father is not Avo, but Aviv. Don't confuse it with the month of Aviv, Chodesh HaAviv, the first month of spring, or with Tel Aviv, the Babylonian location from Ezekiel 3:15 that modern Tel Aviv is named after. That's Aviv with a bet at the end. The Aviv that means his father has a vav suffix, which is what you expect for his, just that it's a V sound and not an O sound. That's unexpected for a singular noun. His brother follows the same pattern, not acho, but achiv. But there's also echav, his brothers with an S. You know that av ending signals a plural noun, so just be careful. Achiv, his one brother. Echav, his plural brothers. Achiv, echav. And finally, Isha, in construct and with suffixes. You remember that Isha, a woman, has the irregular plural form nashim, women. Once you have that form, it works normally. Nashai, my wives. Don't tell my actual wife I said that. Nashav, his wives. Nishei David, David's wives. But the construct form of Isha in the singular, the woman of or the wife of, is not Ishat, as you might have thought, but a segelit form, Eshet. Told you those segelits were going to come back over and over again. Tzipora is Eshet Moshe. Sarah is Eshet Avraham. The man's wife, Eshet Ha'ish, the woman of the man. And the suffixes work, quote unquote, normally, again now, as long as you're willing to think of this construct form, Eshet, as a segelit noun. Ishti, my wife. Ishtecha, your wife. Ishto, his wife. Let's have a look at a couple of biblical verses that use these relationship words. In Genesis 6:18, God tells Noah to go into the ark, Ata uvanecha ve'ishtecha uneshevanecha itach. Got it? Ata, you, uvanecha, and your sons, ve'ishtecha, and your wife, uneshevanecha, and the wives of your sons, itach, with you. Not itcha, the usual masculine form, but itach, the pausal form. See the siluk and the double diamond? This is the end of that verse. And what did they do? Who went into the ark? Genesis 7:7. Noach, uvanav, ve'ishto, uneshevanav, ito. All the same people, except that now instead of God talking to Noah in the second person, it's the narrator talking about Noah in the third person. Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him. In Genesis 8:16, after the flood, all the same people are told to come out of the ark. Ata ve'ishtecha uvanecha u'neshevanecha itach. And in Genesis 8:18, they do. Noach uvanav ve'ishto u'neshevanav ito. Did you notice the subtle difference? They came out of the ark exactly the same way they went in. Noach uvanav ve'ishto u'neshevanav ito. But that's not precisely what God told them to do. When he told them to go in, he told Noah, first ata uvanecha, then ishtecha u'neshevanecha, which is what they did. But when he told them to come out, he told Noah, first ata ve'ishtecha, and then banecha u'neshevanecha, with the couples back together. But they didn't do that. They came out, first the boys, then the girls, same way they went in. Noah wasn't listening. Here's another one. Genesis 28:2, Isaac tells Jacob to go to the house of Bethuel, Avi imecha, and get from there, mi sham, isha mi benot Lavan, achi imecha. Lavan is Laban. Lavan means white, so this might be a nickname, Whitey. But did you get the relationships? Bethuel is Avi imecha, your mother's father, Avi with a patach shva, not my father, but the father of. And imecha, instead of imcha, your mother, because it's a pausal form. That etnachta under the mem tells you this is the resting place in the middle of the verse. Take a breath. Avi imecha, the father of your mother. And get from there, isha, a wife, mi benot Lavan, from the daughters of Laban, achi imecha, your mother's brother. Achi, like avi in this verse, the construct form, not the my form. And finally, from Genesis 2:24, a more challenging one. I'll help out with the verbs. Al kain, that means therefore, ya'azov ish et aviv ve'et imo. Did you recognize that ya'azov is an imperfect verb? What's the root and the PGN of this verb? The yud tells us it's third masculine singular. The remaining three letters are the root, ayin, zayin, bet, which means to abandon or to leave. Where's the subject of this verb? Immediately afterward, ish. Therefore, a man leaves et aviv ve'et imo. I'm leaving that to you. Vedavak be, perfect verb this time, but a converted perfect, so it will be the same tense in our sentence as the imperfect verb at the beginning. It's the unmarked form, so in the perfect, that's also third masculine singular, and the root is daled bet kuf, to cling or cleave or stick. A man leaves et aviv et imo, vedavak be, and he sticks with ishto. If you got all those relationship words and you understand the verse, fabulous. If you didn't, look it up, read it in English, then listen to this section of the lesson again and try to get all these relationship words in your head. They are very, very common with those suffixes, and as soon as you can, you need to make them into building blocks for your Hebrew, not stumbling blocks. I have another challenge ready for you, and it's the longest construct chain I know of, Numbers 14:5. Vayipol Moshe ve'Aharon al penehem, and here comes the construct chain, Lifnei kol kahal adat b'nei Yisrael. Two nouns here that we haven't seen before, kahal and edah, both of them meaning something like congregation or assembly or gathering. Everything else we've learned. And I'm leaving this verse as a challenge for you. If you want to reverse engineer an English translation to help you, fine. I'm encouraging you to do that. But first, always see what you can do on your own. Then, see if you can figure out what the English translators are doing. That's a very important habit to get into to help you start learning on your own. And we're going to finish today with one more word. It always appears as a construct form, never in the absolute. Really, it's a word you just want to learn and don't have to think about it. It's the first word of the book of Psalms. We learned the last word of Psalms, and now it's time to learn the first, Ashrei. You can see that it ends with Sereyud, and I told you that was always the signal that you were looking at the construct form of an im word, but in this case, the im word never shows up in the Bible. You should treat this word as an adjective meaning happy, as the word is used at the beginning of the book of Psalms. Ashrei ha'ish, happy is the man. In fact, this word is used more than 24 times in Psalms, 3/5 of all the occurrences in the Bible. And you'll be interested to know that the Septuagint, the Greek translation, puts it into Greek this way, makarios. That's the same word that's used in Matthew in the Christian Bible in the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the meek, blessed are the pure in heart, blessed are the peacemakers. The Greek translators thought the Hebrew equivalent of that blessed was Ashrei. So it's a word that's worth learning. A happy word to end our lesson on.